Hello, aspiring developers. Welcome back to today's session. I hope you're doing fine. Today, we're going to learn about functions in JavaScript. So, a function is a reusable block of code that is designed to perform a specific task. Functions are the fundamental building blocks in JavaScript. So, we can describe a function as a set of statements that performs a task or calculates a value. So, to use a function, you must define it somewhere in the scope from which you wish to call it. So the advantages of using functions, see that you have reusability. There you see that functions allow you to write code once and then reuse those codes multiple times using different arguments to get different results. So for organization, you say that functions will help us break down the larger codes maybe into smaller ones, which are a bit manageable, so it will be easy to maintain and to read. So that's an organization. For us to avoid repetition, because we said that we repeatedly write a specific task and now we want to reuse it in specific parts. So we say that if a task is repeated in different parts of the code, instead of writing all those, you just encapsulate everything in a function and then you just need to call the function to reuse those codes. So that is how functions help us to avoid repetition. It's kind of the reusability part of it. So now let's go straight to our Visual Studio Code and see the parts of a function, how to declare a function, and how to use a function. Great. So parts of a function. We say that a function in JavaScript is defined with the function keyword. So we learned about a few keywords like the let, the var, the break, the switch, the case, the continue. So function is also another JavaScript keyword. So use the function keyword. And then just like in variables, you are saying variable let, then the variable name, and then we assign the value to that variable. Now in functions, we'll say function, then the function name, then the parentheses. These parameters are optional though, depending on what you want your function to do. And then inside the curly brackets is where you write your block of code or whatever you want to be executed within that function. So these parameters or arguments, can either call them parameters or arguments. Those are the names listed in the function definition. So function is definition is this is what we call the function definition. Then function arguments are the real values that are passed to and received by the function. So parameters are essentially variables that allow the function to receive input. So the work of these parameters is to allow our function here name to receive some input. So let's open our Visual Studio Code and see all of these in action. Sorry, we're opening the script tab. And today we're going to learn about functions. Functions JS. Yeah, so now as we said, we're talking about parts of a function, and we already explained the function keyword, the function name, the parameters, and the body. So now let's write our function using the syntax that we just learned. So function, here we're going to give it the name of kitchen. Then we're going to have it as that function. Sorry, the spelling is not right there. Okay. So here we now have a function named kitchen. It does not take any parameter, but the block of code to be executed will just console.log, and we can output something like welcome to the coding kitchen. Coding is single D. Okay, coding kitchen. So when you run this script, just open our terminal. Leave control. Okay, Control J can help you open your terminal. So you write node and the file name. In our case, it is script.js. So when you run this script, you see that we are console.log is also misspelled, but you'll notice that there is nothing that will be output on the console. Why is this? Because once you write a function, the next thing is how to call that function. Normally we call it function invocation. So function invocation is the calling of a function. The same way, I'll just remind you using variables because that you're already familiar with. Remember, we used to say let name equals coders. So anytime you wanted to reuse this name variable, you will just use name without adding the let keyword. So the same way in functions, when you define a function, you will define it using the function keyword. But when you're using that function, you'll only call the function name. So this is how to call a function or how to invoke a function. You only write the name of that function. And remember, if it has no parameters, then it can have no parameters when you call it. So let's run this script once again. Now you notice that welcome to the coding kitchen has been logged to our console as the output. So that is how we call a function and how we define a function. So that's it on function definition. Now let's dive into several types of functions. Or first, let's test functions using parameters. So here you can say kitchen, then we say meals as a parameter or a variable there. Then we can say welcome to the coding kitchen. Maybe let's log something again to the console. And we say in the kitchen we prepare meals. So we can just we can just log to the console that we prepare. And then pass the argument that we just took up there. We prepare meals. I forgot a comma. Yeah. So now, here you see that you're taking an argument meals and you're passing that argument to whatever we execute in our function. So when you run this, it can still work even without you passing the argument. So let's run this script. You notice that it works. We see welcome to the coding kitchen, and then we see we prepare meals, but you see meals is undefined. This is because we did not give, like we said earlier during variable declaration, we say that if you do not pass any value to it at first, it becomes undefined. So we see that here we have just declared it, but we haven't passed any value. And just a reminder, when you're passing arguments, we don't use the let keyword to define the variable. We just directly pass them there, and the function will understand that that's a variable and you will use them. So here, this is a variable, and just like every other variable, if you do not assign any value to it, it becomes undefined, and that's why we see undefined logged to our console. But now if you pass the value, like let's say which meal can we prepare? Let's say fish meal. Save that. So when we rerun this script, you see that welcome to the coding kitchen, we prepare fish meal. So here now the variable has been passed. So that is how we use variables in functions. Or you can even say meals and maybe the price. Then you say we prepare. Now here we can use concatenation. Say meals. And you can also say maybe, because we're talking about the price, you can say that costs, then we say we concatenate price there. Yeah, so here is our new function with two variables. So first we are passing the meal as an argument. Second, we are passing the price as an argument. But you must notice that when calling the function, you must maintain the order of parameters. I know you already now understand what a parameter is. We must maintain the order of parameters. Here price is undefined, meals is undefined. So when you call this function without either of them, you will see both being undefined. Let's run the script. So you see we prepare undefined. Let's space this code here. Yeah, we see we prepare undefined that costs undefined. So now let's clear the terminal and let's define this meal. You can define the meal as fish meal. I'll just maintain fish meal. Then so you rerun this script and you see that we prepare fish meal that costs undefined. But then you want to add the cost of that fish meal, and let's say it costs $10. So when you rerun this script, you see we prepare fish meal that costs. You can just add the $sign there inside the code, and we rerun the script. Yeah, so we prepare fish meal that costs $10. But you must so for you to appreciate the order of parameters, let us take this fish meal with the first argument and pass it there. So here you see that we are trying to output 10 first and then fish meal. When you run this, JavaScript will understand that the first value you pass will be for the first parameter. So the script will work, but you're going to see values that you do not wish to use. So you see that we prepare 10 that costs $sign fish meal. So that does not make sense. So you must appreciate the parameter, the order of passing parameters. Yeah, so that's it on functions. The function definition. We have understood the function keyword, the function name, the parameters, and the function body, and how to use the parameters within the function body. So we said functions are good because they help us reuse code. So let us see. Maybe you now introduce other meals like we can say pasta, and we can say pasta costs $3. Pasta meal to cost $3, and maybe which other meal we can say. Okay, come here. We can say burger meal. Is there something like a burger meal? Okay, I don't even know about that. $5. So let's run this script. You see that we are outputting everything that is within this block of code 3 times. Why? Because we've called it 3 times and with different parameters. So that is how functions can be reused. So instead of writing all this, you could have written 2 lines of code. So times 3 times, that could be around 6 lines of code. But here you only need to write it once, and then you only call the function with the new parameters. So that is how reusability helps us in JavaScript. So you see at our console, we have welcome to the coding kitchen. We prepare fish meal that costs $10. Then you can also see welcome to the coding kitchen. We prepare pasta meal that costs $3. You can also see welcome to the coding kitchen. We prepare burger meal that costs $5. So that's it for the functions. For the function definition, how to reuse it, and how to pass down parameters and reuse the parameters. So now let's understand the return keyword in functions. I'll just comment all these out so we can create a whole new function. You can enjoy the repetition so you can understand it better. Let's say function sum, and here we say num1, comma, num2. Then in the function body, we just return num1 plus num2. So here we are now learning the return keyword in functions. So here this function, what it means, we just defining a function sum that takes 2 parameters, that is num1 and num2 as arguments, and then it returns the addition of those two arguments. So if you directly call this function sum with arguments say 1, 9, so if you run this script, you'll notice that nothing will be printed in the console. You see nothing is printed on our console. Why is this? Because we're only returning the value, but you're not logging it to the console. So now you can just console.log the function, console.log the function. So now you want to log the result of this sum to the console, you just need to add the console.log. So when you rerun the script, you see that we have 10 as our output. You can even add something here like can say, what can you say there? Can say sum of, let's use backticks because I already showed you how to use template literals. So let's use backticks. No, backticks. Yeah, we can say here sum of, then we pass the variable num1, sum of num1 and num2, sum of num1 and num2. If you don't know how to use backticks, you can check previous videos. You can say sum of num1 and num2 equals, and then you concatenate this num1 plus num2. Yeah, so now I'm just trying to achieve an explanatory statement on our console. So now let's rerun this script. You see now we get the sum of 1 and 9 equals 10. So that's exactly what the return statement means. But remember, if you need it logged to the console, you have to use the console.log. Then now you pass that sum function inside the console.log. Maybe you may want to reuse this result that you get here. So it is advisable to declare another variable. So we can say let result equals all this. So you pass all this as the result. Pass it here. And then you return the result. But also you must remember, if you use the return keyword, anything that goes, we say code that goes here is not reached. Yeah, I believe it is not reached because return is the last statement that will be executed in a function. So if you maybe say here console.log result, you're not going to see let's just say result as a string. So we run this script. You see that this result has not been logged to the console. Why is this? Because return is the last thing that is the last piece of code that the function will do, and then it will stop. It will terminate at that point. Just like when we learned the break keyword, you remember that when the loops met the break keyword, they terminated at that point. They were not continuing. So for functions, if they meet the return keyword, that's the end of it. All the remaining things will be ignored. Yeah, so if you hover on VS Code here, you see that this is an unreachable code. Just like we said here, this is the code that is not reached. Yeah, so let's just clear this because we don't want to have unreachable code in our programs. So that's it for the return keyword. And that's it for the introduction to functions. But I believe I can introduce the other functions so you can just appreciate them. And we can learn more about them when we learn the advanced functions in JavaScript. So I'll comment this out and let's get ready for an interesting, let's say we want to explore functions. This is the very basic functions in JavaScript, and now we want to explore more function in JavaScript. Okay, in the next video, we're going to explore functions, the extra functions in JavaScript. So keep tuned in to wait for the next part of advanced functions in JavaScript.